Do you remember the sound of a dial-up modem? That alien screech that meant the world was about to open, but only after it tested your patience like a teacher with a stopwatch? If you grew up in the 1990s, you didn't just watch society change. You lived inside the turning gears. You were raised in the pause between two eras, between landlines and smartphones, between waiting and wanting, between be home before dark and share your location. And that in-between childhood didn't just shape your memories. It shaped your nervous system. It shaped how you love, how you work, how you trust, and how you carry anxiety like a background app you forgot to close. Today, we're going to explore the psychology of people who grew up in the 90s, not with nostalgia as decoration, but with nostalgia as evidence. The 90s offered something rare, freedom, but not frictionless freedom. You could disappear for hours, on bicycles, on foot, through neighborhood lanes and dusty playgrounds, and no satellite would blink your coordinates back to your parents. This kind of childhood quietly trained an inner muscle, self-directed problem-solving. If you got lost, you asked someone. If you fought with a friend, you patched it up or carried the silence. If you were bored, you didn't scroll. You invented. You improvised. You created games out of nothing. Modern psychology calls this autonomy-supportive development, where children learn they can influence outcomes, not by perfect planning, but by trying, failing, adapting. But there was a cost, because freedom came with a shadow, uncertainty. The 90s child learned early that nobody was coming to rescue every discomfort. That's why many 90s adults are calm in small crises. Power cut? Fine. Missed bus? Fine. Phone dead? Fine. Yet they may also struggle with a softer skill, asking for help without guilt. Because independence became identity, and identity is hard to surrender. Movies came on TV at fixed times. Songs played on the radio and you waited, finger hovering, to hit record at the perfect moment, only to be defeated by the RJ speaking over the intro. You waited for photographs to be developed, for exam results to be posted, for letters, for calls, for weekend cartoons. Waiting wasn't a flaw in the system. Waiting was the system, and without realizing it, you practiced delayed gratification, one of the strongest predictors of long-term goal achievement. That's why many 90s adults are excellent at long games. They can study for months. They can build careers slowly. They can save money and tolerate boredom. But here's the twist. The same generation that mastered patience also grew into a world designed to destroy it. So now you see the contradiction. A mind trained on buffering, living in a world that panics at loading. This tension shows up as restlessness, not because 90s people are impatient, but because their early wiring and modern reality are fighting. They can handle delay, but they resent meaningless delay. They waited when waiting had purpose. Now they wait in traffic, in corporate loops, in endless please hold, and they feel something deeper than irritation. They feel betrayed. In the 90s, social life was not a performance for strangers. It was a reality among people who knew where you lived. If you acted cruel, word traveled, not through a comment section, but through neighborhood aunties and school corridors. Reputation had weight. You couldn't reinvent your brand every week. You couldn't delete your awkward phase. You had to grow through it slowly, publicly. This shaped a particular social psychology. Relational accountability. 90s kids learned that relationships take maintenance. Friendships weren't kept alive by streaks. They were kept alive by showing up. But many 90s adults also carry a social fatigue today, because modern connection is endless, borderless, and demanding. The 90s brain says, friendship is a room. The modern world says, friendship is a feed. So people raised in the 90s often crave intimacy, but feel exhausted by constant access. They don't always want to be reachable. They want to be real. A lot of 90s upbringing, especially in many Asian homes, carried an unspoken contract. Be obedient. Be grateful. Be successful. Don't embarrass the family. Don't talk too much about feelings. Don't call it trauma, call it discipline. Many parents loved deeply, but expressed it indirectly. Through food, through sacrifice, through education, through, "I'm doing this for your future." This creates a psychological pattern common in 90s adults. Achievement as a love language. You may feel safe when you're productive, worthy when you're useful, lovable when you're doing well. And when you're resting, guilt enters like an uninvited guest, sits on the couch, and critiques your breathing. The good child template often becomes the high-functioning adult mask. From the outside, competent. From the inside, constantly proving. This is why many 90s adults are now learning emotional vocabulary late. They're learning to say, "I'm not lazy, I'm tired. I'm not dramatic, I'm overwhelmed. I'm not weak, I'm human." The 90s generation is psychologically unique because it bridges two worlds. You remember life before constant internet, but you also adapted to the internet becoming constant. You experienced the shift from scarcity of information to drowning in it. Scarcity made information precious. You went to libraries, asked teachers, borrowed notes. Abundance makes information cheap, but attention expensive. So many 90s adults now struggle with attention fragmentation. Not because they're undisciplined, but because they live in a world engineered to interrupt. And yet, they also have a rare advantage. They know the difference between online life and real life. They know a message is not the same as presence. They know likes are not the same as love. They know virality is not the same as value. Still, the pressure exists. To keep up, to post, to optimize, to hustle, to glow up, to turn even healing into a productivity project. The 90s child did not grow up selling a self. But the 90s adult lives in an era where everyone is a product. No wonder so many feel quietly torn. 90s romance was often slow, not always healthier, but slower. You had crushes that lasted months. You had the torture of indirect signals, the bravery of phone calls, the humiliation of siblings picking up the receiver. Love required friction, and friction created meaning. Now, dating can feel like shopping. Swipe, compare, discard. Choice expands, commitment shrinks. So 90s adults often carry an old-school romantic psychology. They want depth but fear wasting time. They want commitment but fear losing freedom. They crave a partner but miss solitude. And because many were not raised with emotional conversations, they may struggle to articulate needs until those needs erupt as burnout or silence. The 90s heart often says, "I'll adjust," but healing asks a different question. Why should you always be the one adjusting? Here's the part people don't say aloud. Nostalgia isn't just sweetness. It's also grief. It's grief for a world where time moved slower, where childhood wasn't curated, where mistakes didn't live forever in someone's camera roll. Many 90s adults feel a quiet ache when they see kids today with endless content, but little unstructured play. They don't envy the past because it was perfect. They miss it because it felt human-sized. And anxiety in 90s adults often comes from this mismatch. Their inner pace is slower than the outer world. They can adapt, yes, they have adapted their whole lives. But adaptation is not the same as peace. Peace requires boundaries. Peace requires choosing what to ignore. Peace requires saying, "I don't need to keep up with everything to be okay." If you grew up in the 90s, you carry contradictions. And that's not a weakness. That's your psychology. You are both offline and online, both sentimental and practical, both resilient and tired. You learned how to survive boredom, and that makes you creative. You learned how to wait, and that makes you persistent. You learned how to socialize without filters, and that makes you real. But you also learned to hide feelings, to perform strength, to confuse productivity with worth. Your growth now is not about becoming someone new. It's about retrieving the parts of you that were never allowed to speak. So if you're a 90s kid, listen carefully. You are not behind because you don't want life at 2x speed. You are not weak because you feel overwhelmed by constant noise. You are not old-fashioned because you crave depth. You are simply someone who remembers that life can be lived without constant updates. And maybe that memory is not a flaw. Maybe it's a compass. If this video felt like it described you or someone you love, comment one thing you miss about growing up in the 90s and one thing you're glad has changed. And if you want more psychology videos like this, stories woven with science, subscribe because we're not just studying minds here. We're translating generations.